Hello and welcome back to the Leinster Listen. I'm your host Mick Lennon and this is episode 11, the review of the URC Connacht Derby in the Aviva. The episode today will be the overall opinion of the game. We'll do a breakdown of our stats so far this season. I'll do the analysis of the game events, some URC table positioning, and then a discussion section on Clovers versus Wolfhounds game in the Celtic Challenge. Alright, so just in general then, the overall opinion of the game. The prediction I gave was 24-14, and if you were looking at the game, I was way off on our side, but not too far off on the Connacht side. So the actual score there was 52-17 to Leinster. So as you can see, nearly spot on there with Connacht, but way off the mark of Leinster. I'll gladly be off the mark of Leinster if that's the case. I suppose the overall opinion, the first half was very competitive. I thought Connacht really stuck it to us. I think we had lost a referee as well. We were, I don't know if Dan Sheehan was talking too much or we were just infringing a whole lot. But you have to say, we once again, and I've said this numerous times before, we once again denied the opposition any points in the second half. So not just tries, 0 points in the second half. That is in itself a fantastic achievement. The scrums weren't great in the first half, I do have to say, but they were vastly improved in the second half. We were dominating there in the second half. Again, probably not allowed to capitalise on those dominations though. Told to use it an awful lot, even though we should have been getting a lot more scrum penalties out of them. But look, nothing really to complain about there. As long as we're winning those scrums, as long as we're dominant, I think we're happy out. The lineouts were pretty much spot on. I think we only lost one. So not too bad, and also we lifted in most of them that for the Connacht lineouts, which is great because we actually got a crooked penalty called against Connacht for one of them, and you love to see that happen, and especially with the new rules where if the opposing team doesn't lift, it can be as crooked as it wants. So look, good to get one of them as well. And I suppose I couldn't let it go without saying that Connacht definitely have created a habit of shutting down after scoring anything on their side. We scored. They scored just before the half time to get them in front. Would have been a great lead to have going into the half time break. And what did they do? They just let the gas off the pedal, and we got in for a try on the mark of half time. So very strange from them. But I will put it to Connacht. Finlay Bealham definitely was one of their best players there. He pushed us on our scrums in the first half. Definitely caused us to put some scrum penalties in. So, good for him. Notable players there, Charlie Tector. Tector time, lads. My God. Definitely making up for his mistakes against Ulster there 2 weeks ago. And in style. A fantastic player there just on Saturday night. Couldn't fault him. Tommy O'Brien and JJ Kenny, dynamic duo. Unreal, and the speed of those lads is just unreal. Both of them very fast, obviously. They're going to give Lowe a run for his money because these lads are electric. JJ Kenny, very unfortunately, didn't get 2 tries himself. He just fumbled the ball on the left hand side in one of them, and honestly, he was true. But great players to do with him. And then you can't really say have this episode without mentioning Frawley. He did not let his future teammates away on Saturday night. He went hell for leather. Great vision for us there. He was always up on the defensive line, rapid. His defensive mark was unreal there, as well as a couple of runs and a couple of plays he was doing. Just fantastic overall player. Like, Connacht are really after bagging a huge player for themselves. I know he's going to probably go in at 10 there, and fair enough, but he's just an all-rounder, isn't he? It's very, you might figure out here I'm a little bit still depressed that he is leaving, but look, he played a blinder. And last but not least, Prendergast. Oh my God, did he step up to the mark today again? Harry Byrne, just before the game, was actually removed from the bench. I'm not entirely sure what went on there, but his name was removed from it. So I don't know if that gave Sam Prendergast a bit more courage for himself, knowing that there was no one else to come in for him. But he had 8 conversions. He only missed 1. Not bad. I know 4 of them now were directly under the post, so easy kicks. But his kicking game was on the ball. Like, he set up 2 tries with 2 proper kicks, and amazing. Fair play to him. I will say, and you'll see it online, his tackling is a bit piss poor still. A lot of jersey pulling there, and even if he was a speed bump, it probably would be better. But look, you have to say, however, he is a 10. So if he was to do the opposite here, if he was involved in every single crash and tumble and tackle there and ended up getting himself injured, that's him gone. And then we'd all be cribbing and crying, saying, "Oh, look at him! Why is he going into these tackles against these big men, these big Connacht men, and injuring himself? Now we don't have another 10 replacement." So that's his job. His job is done. He done the kicks. His passing was perfect. So top notch. Can't fault him. He did go a little bit. Well, sorry, can't fault him. Then immediately fault him here, Jesus. But he was going a little bit too deep on the penalties, and he did this already in the game against Ulster, where I think there was 3 balls that he didn't kick to touch for penalties, and that's not great. And he did that again for 1. But look, he obviously learned his lesson in that game, and he didn't try that again. And I could see by him he was very frustrated after doing that. So look, I think he's very much improved this season. I think he's going to be one of our top players. And look, I can't wait to see him play against La Rochelle next week. I think he's honestly he's definitely going to be on the team sheet starting. He'll be brilliant. And if he does exactly what he did today against Connacht, against La Rochelle, we are going to be in for a fantastic game. Couldn't go now without doing a notable mention to Andrew Brace, who made probably one of the weirdest calls ever. I'll go into it in the match event because it is a match event. Just a spoiler there. He brought it back from the 5 metres to a scrum penalty. But look, I'll talk about it in a few minutes. But I have to say that he actually was gone after half time. So he didn't come out. He was replaced by Keane Davison. I actually don't think I've ever seen him referee a game, but look, he ref pretty well when he came on. Davison did. But there's loads of jokes there and saying that, Brace pissed the Leinster players off that much and all the supporters, that Cullen had him locked into a back room there at half time and gave him a few tums, and that's why he went home early. But no, it was funny because once we realised that Brace had been replaced at half time, it zoomed in on Sam Prendergast's face, who was restarting the game at half time, and the Leinster crowd, after realising the announcement came in that Andrew Brace has been replaced by Keane Davison, the big smirk on Sam Prendergast's face, hearing the crowd do a huge cheer. He couldn't get away with it because his face is up in the screen, had a bit of a smirk, a bit of a laugh, and anyway got back into the game. But look, I do hope that Brace is okay and he didn't pick up any injuries during that game, and that he hasn't been assassinated by Leo Cullen. That would be probably the main thing not to happen. But yeah, in a line, I suppose, huge performance from the back line there. Huge performance from the front line. The defence was strong. I think we pushed back on it pretty much on every single attack play they had. There were the most time they were gaining stuff was quick runs on the very far outside where there might have been a gap. But look, if we keep this shape up, I will be pleased. Okay, so normally I go into the match analysis now. What I will do is I do want to bring attention to, since we're kind of at the halfway point now, I do want to bring attention to our season stats in the URC. And these are interesting. And I'm going to put it against Glasgow Warriors as a similar enough team to us in terms of played games. I would have done DHL Stormers, but they have one more game to play and it just didn't really line up too very well. So just straight away, try scored there. Now, Glasgow Warriors are second, mind you. We are in fifth. So try scored. We have 36 tries scored. Glasgow have 37. So very even there. Meters made was an interesting one. We have 3,911 meters made, whereas Glasgow Warriors have 4,181. So considering we've pretty much the same amount of tries, that's an interesting marker there. As well as the tackle success, we have an 80% tackle success rate, whereas Glasgow Warriors have an 85% tackle success rate. But we do have the same amount of turnover tackles. So 53 there. So again, not much differentiation there between a team who's in fifth and a team who's in second in the URC. Conversion success there is probably the only one we're actually lacking on. And we have a 69% conversion success. So that's probably where we're missing the mark on this. Whereas Glasgow Warriors have a 91% conversion success rate. That's huge. Going straight into the forwards in the forward pack and that, the scrum pack there, we have an 89% win percentage for scrums and Glasgow Warriors have a 90%. But then in scrum penalties, we actually have a 25. We've had 25 scrum penalties against us and Glasgow Warriors had 24. So again, not much differentiating us from that top marker there. I know DHL, I'm sure if I went to DHL Stormers, probably be a similar enough mark there as well. And the final one there is the lineouts where we have actually tipped the scale on Glasgow Warriors. We've a 94% success rate on our lineouts, and Glasgow Warriors have 91%. So, big numbers there. Overall, big picture, these stats are very impressive. If you weren't biased and you were looking at these, you would say, well, that is unreal. There's nothing really lacking there apart from the conversions. But look, we've had a bit of issues with conversion. We've a bit of issue with trying to pick who's our 10. A bit of competitiveness there between Harry Byrne and Sam Prendergast. So I'll give that one as probably our one we have to improve on. But few games early on in the season, probably if you're looking at them, you'd probably think these stats were impossible for us. So yeah, very little differentiating us. And yeah, I suppose we'll just hip on into the match events. All right, so I'm going to get very tired here, and a bit of a spoiler in the second half, where I'm going to probably be out of breath talking about all the tries we got, since we did get 8 tries overall. Fantastic game for us, honestly. Unfortunately for Connacht, I think that's their 10th loss against interprovincial teams in a row. So something seriously lacking on their end. But yeah, straight away, and I love to see this, a 4th minute try, and like we were doing for a long time, quick try to start off the game, get us into flow state, and none other than Dan Sheehan. It was a break from Gibson Park on the left side of the pitch, quick through the hands all the way to the other side of the pitch, and a wide pass out then by Tommy O'Brien to Dan Sheehan at pace, and no one there to stop him. Classic. I don't know how we always end up having Dan Sheehan out in the wings there, but he's an absolute cold train. So if anyone there, and normally would be like the fullback or the opposing winger, they're not going to stop him. Even if there was someone there, they're not going to stop him. So anyway, he got over there. That was nicely converted at a tight angle there by Sam Prendergast to put us 7-0 up. In the 8th minute then again, so only 4 minutes later, another try, and none other than Tector time, Charlie Tector. Quick thinking from Prendergast here. It was a lot of phase play in the middle of the pitch. Kick over the top. About 4 or 5 defenders kicked over. There's only one defender left. Huge pressure by Tommy O'Brien on that defender. Ball pops out away from the defender and right in line for Charlie Tector. Crashes under the post. Perfect. Again, under the post there. So Sam Prendergast converted that. Easy. Job done. That was then 14-0. So we have to skip ahead then. 12 minutes of pure impressive play back and forward to the 20th minute where Connacht actually got their first score on the board. Dylan Tierney Martin there, penalty inside our own 5 metres. They opted for a tap and go, the correct decision all day long. Dylan Tierney carried that. We just missed the initial tackle. I think Dan Sheehan kind of grazed him on the initial tackle, and he was able to spin off that ruck and just stretched out and got the try there. That was then converted by Sam Gilbert, which brought the score to 14-7. 7 minutes later then, unfortunately, Big Joe McCarthy ended up getting a yellow card, and normally I'd like to say it was harsh or it was a team yellow, but no, unfortunately this was a cynical one. He did play the ball off his feet in the ruck and ended up giving himself a yellow card anyway, but going back for a penalty advantage for Connacht there in the 27th minute, and they opted for a penalty, so they went for the post. Anytime you would have done that, it's the right decision. A man down for the next 10 minutes, get your easy 3 points and try get another score on the board while he's gone off. So that brought the score then to 14-10. 30th minute then, this is where, as I said, and I kind of gave a spoiler earlier on, the weirdest call I think I've ever seen. So we gave them a scrum penalty advantage inside their own half. Now inside, that's a big piece of information as to why I said this is a weird thing. So inside their own half, we gave them a scrum penalty, they get advantage, they play it, okay? Happy out, they're making ground, going left and right. Bundyaki carries a bit, gets to Finlay Beelum, he carries a bit as well, goes all the way up into the left side of the pitch, crashes down inside our 5 metres, and Frawley gets on that and strips the ball out and overturns that ball. And what happens then? Brace calls back for no advantage. Now, I could not believe that my eyes. I thought maybe they got another penalty advantage somewhere else and they were, opting to choose that. No, it wasn't. So it brought all the way back to inside their own half and got to play it again. So And like, it wasn't just me who was very confused. There was huge boos from the crowd. Even there was two Connacht fans sitting in front of us, and they turned around and was like, "Oh, why is he going back for that?" I had no answer. For it. I thought it was completely ridiculous. I had to go and watch it back there on URC TV, and I still don't understand it. Now, I did look up the rules, and I understand that the advantage play is actually to the discretion of the referee. So there is no like set, it has to go a certain amount of meters and it's no advantage, or it has a certain amount of phase play or whatever. No, it's purely down to the referee's decision at the time. Now, the only question I have in that sense is, what exactly would have caused it to say advantage over? Was it they had to get a try and that was advantage over? Like it just, for me, I was like, what exactly did we need to do there to avoid giving that penalty back to them? But anyway, look, it didn't actually play out for them. It took them another 7 minutes before they actually got a try. So I think that was pretty much 20 seconds before Big Joe's yellow card was finished. Anyway, spoiler alert there, as I said, 37 minute, Connacht then got a try. Finlay Bealham, another penalty inside around 5 metres. There was a few phases from that, and then Bealham dived under our defender to score the try. That converted then by Sam Gilbert. So the score then was 14-17, 3 minutes before half time. And if you're listening attentively, you would have heard that I already spoiled the next one. Within 2 minutes, we actually got another try. So I don't know what is wrong with Connacht that they just eased off the pedal there. Like, they were ahead 14-7. That would have been a fantastic lead at half time. Alas, Leinster came knocking. And this one was actually Hugh Cooney, with Connacht players falling off and making some meters over the other side of the pitch. Gibson Park quick on that ruck. Little pop pass into Prendergast, who's running onto it. And Prendergast, I can only describe it as kind of swung his hip to the left to avoid the tackle, which was excellent. Easy try. Unfortunately, he then missed his own conversion. But that brought the score just before halftime, 19-17. So straight into then the second half, 44th minute, like the very first half, 4 minutes in, a try for Leinster. Brian Deeney, it was off a perfect line out. The maul was very good, as we usually do. And I was only saying on Reddit there, I actually hope we play into our mauls. We're a very strong pack. The maul was actually collapsed, but it was collapsed legally. I think it was one of our lads actually fell over. But 2 phases later, Deeney gets the ball and slips in pretty much the exact same as Finlay Bealham did, right under the last defender there. And then that was converted by Sam. So the score then 26-17. And this is when my mouth's going to get tired, because there's actually just a flurry of tries here. Get ready for this. 52nd minute, try, Leinster. Tommy O'Brien, a perfect line out again. A long pass from Van der Fleer, who was actually falling off that line out. And straight to Gibson Park. Gibson Park to Sam. Pop pass, Tommy O'Brien on fire there. He was at pace. Tackle was made onto him, wasn't held, and he just crashes over the line through 2 other defenders there. Fucking savage try. He's an unstoppable force. He's so fast. I love it. That was obviously just under the post, so converted then by Sam. Brilliant. 33-17. 63rd minute, try, Leinster, Charlie Tector. A huge scrum under the posts, 10 metres out. I love those scrums. That is, like, the scrums that are being called. And, South Africa are huge for this during the World Cup. Whenever there's a penalty infringement in front of the post, you're always calling that scrum to really draw in those players and branch out the backline defenders, because they can't cover all of it. Huge scrum anyway. We actually get a scrum penalty out of that. Gibson Park lets it flow a little bit, drawing them in a little bit more. Quick pass out to Prendergast, and Prendergast actually runs with the ball, delays the pass to soak in the tackler. Fantastic play, honestly. His passing was just on point. Soaks in the tackle, and then a quick pass out to Tector, and Tector is through the gap that Prendergast actually created, and fantastic try again. That was then converted by Sam Prendergast, 40-17. Did not end there, lads. Well, it did for a lot of the Connacht players, or Connacht supporters. They were starting to head home at that point. Long queue for the dart and all that. 66th minute, another try. Tommy O'Brien once again. This was actually just inside our own half. And look, to say Tommy O'Brien's try, it is Tommy O'Brien's try, but it was none other than the absolute intelligence and reading the mind of the Connacht men by Charlie Tector. He intercepts a pass from the Connacht. Like, actually, it was out of nowhere. Like, I don't know how he could judge this was going to happen. Intercepts that pass and makes off like a rocket. He unfortunately just hadn't the legs to run the full length. I think he got within there 22. But Tommy O'Brien there was on his heels, ready for that to finish it off. Perfect try. And that was obviously under the post, converted then by Sam Prendergast. The score then 47-17. And last but not least, the 76th minute, a try for Leinster by none other than my most favourite new player now, JJ Kenny. This was, honestly, it was unfortunate he didn't get one about 5 minutes before this. There was a great pass from Cooney to him on an offload, and unfortunately he just slipped out of JJ Kenny's hands and spilled forward. But look, I won't deny him that. You know, he was definitely set for another try over there. But anyway, in the 76th minute, Van der Fleer passes to Kenny on the wing. The only defender there left is Bundy Aki, and Bundy Aki actually trips himself up with his own feet because of the fast play between Josh Van der Fleer and JJ Kenny. And look, there's no catching him. He's like Roadrunner. He's so fast. I love that this man is after coming in and is making a name for himself on the wings. That's 5 tries now he scored, and I think that's his 5th appearance, so a try for every appearance that he's been in. Unfortunately, that final conversion then was missed by Sam Prendergast, but it brought us then to the final score, 52-17. Man of the match there was Jemison Gibson Park. That is a very obvious decision. He was everywhere. He was fast in the rucks. He was fast for the passes. He was making plays. He actually did one kick across field to, I think it was JJ Kenny, but unfortunately it just bounced in front of him and he didn't catch it. Actually, no, sorry, that was actually Tommy O'Brien. So it could have been another try. But look, Jemison Gibson Park, we all know he's a fantastic player. And over half of those tries were definitely set up by him. And yeah, so that was the match events. A plethora of tries by us. A very electric game. One for definitely not the Connacht fans. And I actually brought my brother-in-law to it. We had crack. He probably didn't. But it was an interesting one to look at. But yeah. Alright, so where does that leave us on the URC table? So we are now 5th. So we went from 6th to 5th, and we're still trailing Ulster. I don't know how. Don't know how we're still trailing Ulster. Anyway, but the big thing there is we are ahead of Munster. We're on the same points as them, but we're ahead of them after that, Winter Pros. And I'd say they are livid. They have to be livid. And look, it's great to see that, but also it's great that in the Shield we are now first. So if you remember me saying by the end of these Winter Provincials, I knew we'd get to the top of this Shield, and we did. We're now first in the Irish Shield, 14 points, and Munster and Ulster are trailing us by 4 points on 10 points. So go on, the lads. That is brilliant. Great result. And look, I mean, being on the URC table in 5th, it actually means nothing because we're only about 6 points away from DHL Stormers. Now, I know they have a game in hand, but still, that's a fantastic place. If we get top 4 now, coming in the next 4 games, I think we're in great position. You know, we want those. First and foremost, we want the home advantage, mainly because the season ticket holders get them for free. So that would be nice. But also, you know, we want to play in home. We want to play these final few games, the round of 16, at home. That's what we want. That's what everyone wants. Anyway, so the next game isn't actually in the URC. It's back into the European Champions Cup. La Rochelle, 10th of January in the Aviva. And if you haven't got tickets, there is tickets still available. And please do show the support. We want to see a lot of blue in that crowd and stick it to the Munster coach. I won't even dare say his name. But after this, we're going to go into our discussion point. All right, so discussion point. If you remember you talking about the Celtic Challenge just gone by, there was a game on Saturday, the Clovers versus Wolfhounds Women's Celtic Challenge. So Wolfhounds there claimed victory 7-24. Huge display. Fantastic game. I'd implore you to go watch it. It's on YouTube. It was actually on TG Carr live at the time, but there's full commentary in English on YouTube. So, you know, great one to watch and put in your support for the Wolfhounds there. That actually puts Wolfhounds at the top of the table with their next match on the 10th of January, the same day as the La Rochelle game. I think it's 3 p.m. and that's in Edinburgh in Scotland. Some match key events there, and I'll go through it. We actually saw the return of Erin King from a very lengthy injury, so great to see her back, and she made some plays there at number 8, setting up some tries. The 6th minute there was the first try, and that was by Aoife Dalton, so one of our Leinster greats. Long pass out to Dana O'Brien. Pop pass on her outside shoulder to Aoife Dalton at pace, and she absolutely skinned 2 defenders to get them their first and starting try for that game. That was then converted by Dana O'Brien, brought them to 0-7. This, obviously, the Clovers were home, so it was actually played in Craig's RFC in Galway. We had to wait then for a while. 36th minute, got another try for the Wolfhounds. Robin O'Connor. They pulled the Clovers in under the post, very similar as I would have talked about in Leinster. Really spread out those defence, quick hands out, huge gaps in defence for the Clovers there, unfortunately. But the Wolfhounds are so fast. It was when walked in by Robin O'Connor, and Robin O'Connor is a fantastic player. She's an absolute animal, an unstoppable force. You're not stopping her. She pretty much walked it in, and she could have probably thrown off a couple of defenders there, no bother to her. Unfortunately, that conversion was missed then by Dan O'Brien, brought the score to 0-12. There was actually a Clovers try ruled out now, and I actually thought at the time it was a bit controversial. Now, they said that her foot went out onto the whitewash, but honestly, that was marginal. If it was I think if it was in a bigger stadium and you had the technology to look in with the TMOs, look in properly into that, I think it might have been allowed. But look, it was called off, or it was ruled out anyway. But look, anyway, regardless from that, a few minutes later then, into the second half, the 42nd minute, the Clovers actually did get their first try. Into the first time, it was just before the half-time, 42nd minute. Clovers got their try, Jemima Verling. Great try by them, a lot of phases, and they ended up just getting through their number 8. Kind of dodged, it was pop past her number 8, Jemima, and she just flew in to get themselves a try just before half-time. That was then converted by Katrina Finn, since it was just under the post, so a very easy one for them. That brought the score to 7-12, just a half-time there. Into the second half then, 63rd minute, try by the Wolfhounds. Once again, Wolfhounds putting pressure under the post there. A deep pass out to Dalton, and Aoife Dalton was rapid with it. Huge wide pass out then, kind of what you call a rainbow pass, out to Boylan, who was at pace down the line on the end. She crashed over, kind of dove for the line there in the corner, and unfortunately that conversion was then missed. But, a fantastic try by Maggie Boylan there, and the vision by Aoife Dalton to get that pass out. That brought the score to 7-17. Then the 69th minute, about 6 minutes later, another Wolfhounds try, and this was actually the final score of the game. Eve Higgins. So Dana O'Brien with a very delayed pass, very similar to Sam Prendergast, with the delay, soaking in that tackle to dupe the defenders. Eve Higgins actually did a slight goose step, ploughed through the first defender, and then there was no one there to stop her, and she put the foot down, no catching her. Perfect score. That was then converted by Dan O'Brien to bring them to 7-24 final score. Job done. Fantastic game. I would implore you to go and watch that. It was probably one of the best physical games I've seen in a long time, and great to see Erin King there and all the Leinster players, especially Aoife Dalton, who was captain in that as well. And look, again, if you don't remember, their next game is on the 10th. It's against Edinburgh, in Edinburgh, and that'll be, I think, round 3 of the Celtic Challenge. So do have a look. I think it might not be on TG Car, so it'll probably be on YouTube. But you can catch all the highlights on YouTube under the Celtic Challenge YouTube channel there as well. Alright, so thanks again, folks, for listening. Next game is European Champions Cup against La Rochelle. Next episode should be out Friday the 9th, given the team sheets. The team sheets actually for the European Champions Cup generally come out 2 days before. So if that is the case, I'll have it out for Friday. But again, if you haven't already, please do follow us on social media, Instagram, Reddit, Threads, Blue Sky, also YouTube as well. And yeah, once again, thanks for listening, folks. Have a good one.